Okay. Okay. Didn't tell me that we were live, but we are live now, and I know that. So today, on I guess you can call this the warm up. That's what I've been calling it. I just put that on there just simply because I'm trying to whip myself back into shape. Speaking in front of a camera, podcasting, things of that nature. But I've never really done this outside of the testing things that I do. I think back when I was podcasting, I think I might have one episode where I was solo. But I've never podcasted by myself. And it's different when you have an A mic, a B mic, things of that nature where, you got somebody to help carry the load opposed to this, where it's just me, which is okay because I got some things that we're going to talk about. And so, first on the docket, first on the docket is something that I'm not going to address. I'm not even going to say what's going on. Don't even know how to address it, but I'm going to address it by saying this. People people often criticize the Christian community. And I get it because a lot of people say that they are Christians and, you know, the fruit don't line up. So when you have a good percentage of America saying that they're Christian and pushing a lot of things that doesn't necessarily line up, I can understand how people can have a problem with that. But one thing that I will say is that when people truly preach the Bible, and there's some stuff on there that's offensive, you know, I there are a lot of times when I'm reading the Bible and I feel hit. But one thing that I do know is that you have a lot of groups out there that whenever they get the opportunity to pounce on a Christian, it's no problem at all. But when I feel like someone is messing with us, then it's fair game. And I particularly don't like that. And I only say this is with Little Nas X. I don't even want to really address it like that because I know he's a troll above everything. So it kind of made me not even want to do it. But you know, I think he did something that is very, very offensive. And I wish that people wouldn't just laugh at it. That would people will recognize that that is offensive to a group and call them out on it. But anywho, I don't want to give that much light. I'm not even gonna say what he did simply because I don't want to trolls like attention, and I don't want to give that much attention, and not to say that he even needs my attention. So yeah, we are gonna move along with that, and I got some stuff that I want to talk about. So I want to hit something. I want to hit something first, something that I was unaware of that really kind of doesn't even make. It's not even a thing anymore because it was done then undone so fast. But I still don't know that that is. We still don't know if that is something that was temporary just because of what happened or whatever the case is. But I get into that. So as we all know, it's funny. It seems like I'm not even gonna say beef. It seems like 2024 has been the year of clearing the air. And I was gonna make a joke and say and act like I was finna get in here and clear everybody some stuff that grievances that I had, but I don't carry anything. I don't carry anything against anybody, especially to the point where I feel like I would run to the public with it. But I don't carry anything. I try to I try to stay good in here, and I try not to. Sorry, I hit the microphone. I try not to even let anybody. Matter of fact, look at the microphone. I got MLK on there. I can't even figure out what to point because I can't look down at myself. But got Martin Luther King on there. This is Martin Luther King weekend. Martin Luther King Day is on Monday, so I felt like I would pay homage to Martin Luther King and throw him on the microphone for today. But anywho, Stephen A. Smith. I first I first encountered Stephen A. Smith. It had to be about, was it maybe the late 2000 the late 2000s or the early 2010s on First Take, and it was before Matt. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say I started watching First Take because of him. That was back when he used to only come on Wednesdays. So he would come on Wednesdays. He'd sit down with Skip, and then it went to being an everyday thing or whatever the case is. But I have been following, and boy, that was the good days of ESPN to me. That, from late 2000, the late 2000s to the 2010s, and Stuart Scott was still alive, and you had your Stephen A. just now come in, and then transpired into you had Chris Broussard on there, and Jamel Hill and Michael Smith, Numbers Never Lie, his and her podcast, all that type of stuff, and ironically enough, his and hers podcast is what made me want to begin to podcast. So I was deep in those ESPN streets back in those days. So I was appalled to hear, and I know I've seen podcasts. I've seen his podcast. I've seen Stephen A. on other podcasts, but to speak in the manner and use vulgar language towards an individual, I have never heard Stephen A. speak in a manner. So when I saw a clip, when I saw a clip of Stephen A. Smith, of this, can't say interview, of his podcast, where he was addressing Jason Whitlock, and it was just like a 15-second clip, I was like, oh, I need to go watch that. I need to go watch that because I need to know how he got from there to there. And, I didn't know, the comments that Jason Whitlock had made about his book and things of that nature. And one thing that I would say, as a member of the Black community, and I don't even think that you have to pay attention to sports to know some of the foolishness that Jason Whitlock has uttered out of his mouth concerning Black people. I don't think you have to be a sports fan to know these things. So when it comes to Jason Whitlock, when I first seen that he was even addressing, I'm like, why? Why would you address him? Like, he got on there and he felt the need that, because I can only imagine what I know about Jason Whitlock publicly, and some people, some people publicly can show one way and be the complete opposite behind closed doors. So it's kind of hard for me to say that judge him by what I see, but some stuff is just so egregious that you can pretty much say that if you had any type of morals, any type of character, you would not do those things. And so anyone that knows me know that I don't use words that can be considered vulgar and things of that nature. But one thing as a Black man, when I see other Black people who are not withholding the standard in which I think black people should carry. There's this word that I will say, but I got banned. The one time that I have been, no, I think I've been banned multiple times on Facebook. But I know one of the things that I have been going to Facebook jail for was my use of a particular animal. That if you go outside, you may see some squirrels, you may see some I'm just staying squirrels. You may see some possums. Then there you may see some raccoons. So let's just say that word, one of those three animals that I named, the word that I got sent to Facebook jail is in there. So I'm not gonna say it because I don't want to go to jail. But let's just say loon. And when it comes to Jason Whitlock, in my eyes, he's the looniest of the loons. With that being the case, I didn't feel like Steven, I don't think that he did that for us. You don't have to address Jason Whitlock for us. So one of the things that I grew up listening to rap, and one of the things that Wayne said, if I talk about my rivalry, they probably get rich. So forget them, I'ma let them sit. So when it comes to things of that nature, I don't. If I were to be beefing with someone, I would never say anything about it because I feel like that's your beef. I don't have no beef with anyone, so I wouldn't even address it. But Stephen A. Smith had some time on his hand. So I just want to get to some of this. It's a very long interview. But this, why is this not coming up? You gotta be kidding me. This is literally doing this when I'm ready to go. Okay, give me 1 second. Let me get this going. But as we go, we're gonna talk. So I sat down to watch this interview, and it addressed something, a theory that I had. So if you watched the first episode of this, we talked about Jonathan Majors. And in talking about Jonathan Majors, we talked about, it's there. For whatever reason, it's not. But yeah, in talking about Jonathan Majors, I said, I don't think, excuse me, that we've seen the last of Jonathan Majors as Kang. And the reason why I said what I said was because Jonathan Majors worked for Marvel. Marvel is owned by Disney, and with Marvel being, there we go. Yeah, that's what it is right there. With Marvel being owned by Disney, Disney fired him literally within minutes of the verdict, the guilty verdict. But then all of a sudden he's going on an interview. And had he gone on an interview with some black media like the Breakfast Club, I wouldn't have batted an eye. Had he gone and sat down with Gayle King over at CBS, I wouldn't have batted an eye. But it was something very particular about the fact that he went and sat down with ABC. ABC is ABC is Disney. Disney. Marvel. Disney. So with that being the case, I was watching this Stephen A. Interview, and he said some things.
Going on in the world of sports that need to be addressed. But on this
Yes.
particular day, they don't take precedent. Instead, one would be Aaron Rodgers and his situation with the Pat McAfee show. That's necessary to address because, after all, I'm an employee for ESPN.
C. Okay. So Aaron Rodgers and the McAfee show. So I just wanted to go there because that is something. When he said that, I'm like, oh, what's going on here? I didn't know anything about it. But basically, Aaron Rodgers has been beefing with Jimmy Kimmel for quite some time. And that's because Aaron Rodgers says and does some wild stuff sometimes when it comes to his off the field things. And, there are some things that he has said. I'm like, yeah, I agree with that. And then he said something within the next minute. I'm like, oh, that's left field. I ain't rocking with him on that. But so Aaron Rodgers had the opportunity to get some get back. And with that being the case, he took the with that Epstein list that we talked about on the first episode. With that Epstein list, he said, that list will be out in a couple of days, and some people like Jimmy Kimmel might be on it. Jimmy Kimmel didn't like that. I get it because that's some serious allegation that comes with being landed on that list. But at the same time, if you can dish the jokes out, you got to be able to take the jokes, regardless of where the jokes go. But let's connect some dots here. So I said Marvel is Disney, ABC is Disney. Jonathan Majors got fired from Marvel, then went and did a interview with Disney. So how does that connect here? Well, who does Jimmy Kimmel work for? Jimmy Kimmel works for ABC. Who does Pat McAfee work for? ESPN. So with that being the case, let's run this back just a little bit. And then, oh no, that's a part of the next topic. Let's run that back just a little bit and listen to Stephen A. What my volume at?
And his situation with the said one would be Aaron Rodgers and his situation with the Pat McAfee show. That's necessary to address because, after all, I'm an employee for ESPN.
Aaron Rodgers and his situation with the Pat McAfee show. That's necessary to address because, after all, I'm an employee of ESPN. ESPN, ABC, Marvel, all Disney. So, after Aaron Rodgers made his comments about Jimmy Kimmel, it was announced that Aaron Rodgers will no longer be on the Pat McAfee show this football season. And I'm like, ding, ding, ding. I've said it. Disney taking care of their own. So, oh, he said that and Jimmy Kimmel only like that? And, that's one of our money makers over there? Oh, get rid of him off that, even though it's Aaron Rodgers. So I'm looking at it like, can you see the dots being connected here? And can you see how just the same way that it happened with James Gunn, how he got kicked off of Guardians of the Galaxy, let it die down for a little bit, all of a sudden they bring him back in. So I really believe that seeing that Disney takes care of their own and they invested a lot of money into Kang and Jonathan Majors as Kang, and in my mind I think he was doing a pretty good job. So with that being the case, I think Jonathan is probably going to appeal. I don't know what the thought process of the appeal is going to be, but when you look at the charges and see that you can just let things kind of die out for a little bit, I'm thinking that they're thinking that we're going to see Kang again. But, who am I? That's just my thoughts. But we got a long way. I know it was after a commercial. So he's talking about the Pat McAfee and all of that right now. I started to cut this up, but I'm like, that's gonna be a little bit too much work, so I ain't want to do all that. Okay, get past. Okay, here we go.
Show right here over the digital airwaves of YouTube. By the way, that quote from Aaron Rodgers, from Aaron Rodgers about Jimmy Kimmel, which initially sparked this whole brouhaha, was, quote, "There's a lot of people, including Jimmy Kimmel, that are really hoping that list doesn't come out." That's what he had said. Couldn't find it for some reason. I apologize. Let me get back to the subject at hand. Ladies and gentlemen, as a black man sitting in this seat, the level of vitriol that I have to absorb is something that I understand 99.99% of the time. You're a former player and you want to crucify me, that's fine. You're somebody that was involved in some kind of public incident that I had to speak on, whether you're the wife or ex-girlfriend or some of a former player, whatever, I get it.
Let's skip a little bit.
No obligation to touch on anything, but I feel the need to after that and what have you. If you listen to him, I never had a scholarship to Winston-Salem State, even though it's on the books. Just call the university. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, I'm an honorary doctorate member. I have an honorary doctorate from Winston-Salem State University because of my contributions to Winston-Salem State. I'm called Dr. Smith. Has something to also do with the contributions that I make because I believe about upliftment. I'm an ambassador for HBCU Week, and I've partnered with Ashley Christopher and Mir Persicki in Delaware and others to generate over 10,000 scholarships in excess of over $65 million in scholarships for African Americans. But this man will tell you I'm lying. He even went so far as to say my autobiography, where I talk about my mother, my father, my sisters, the business, my hiring and firing and rehiring at ESPN. I didn't write it. I didn't write my own memoir, which, by the way, is a New York Times bestseller, something he wouldn't know anything about. Did you know that it's now on paperback? It just came out yesterday on paperback. Do you know that you could go to Amazon.com, straightshooterbook.com, or a bookstore nearest you to get my book in paperback? Do you know that when people are normally selling 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 copies, I've sold over 400,000? Did you know, did you know, did you know? But he will tell you, I didn't write it. He's seen my writing. Really?
And one thing about this, if you watch this, Steve Hay, he had all the receipts. Had all the receipts. And we're gonna go to something about that too.
This article is an article written on Deadspin.com. The title, How Jason Whitlock is Poisoning ESPN's Black Grant Land. Because remember, Bill Simmons, who's now at Spotify doing a great job, obviously had Grantland at ESPN, and upon his departure, Jason Whitlock was supposed to take up the mantle and create a black website for folks. This article was written by a Greg Howard, published on April 27th, 2015. The same Jason Whitlock that said he's seen my writing, the same Jason Whitlock that implied that I couldn't write, the same Jason Whitlock that said that I'm lying. that I'm lying. What does this man do? Why would I call up this article? There's a plethora of reasons why I would do so, ladies and gentlemen. One of the reasons would be because it's as in depth as it gets about how scurrilous, how trifling, how despicable this man is. But there's also another reason that I'd pick up this article. Let me read the graph to you that it says. Keep in mind, Stephen A. can't write.
After the glasses come off,
This staff,
that's the part I'm
the
trying to get
one
to.
Whitlock was praising by way of warnings that if the writers and editors wouldn't align with his vision, he would get rid of them, was not the one Whitlock wanted. The Undefeated, because that was the name of the title before it ultimately became And Scape. The Undefeated was originally meant to attract the best and brightest young black talent in the country, with Whitlock's aim set so high that he at one point seriously tried to recruit the Atlantic's Ta-Nehisi Coates, the sharpest cultural commentator in the business today. As things worked out, though, those young writers comprehensively refused to work with him. So did big-name ESPNers like Howard Bryant, Jamel Hill, and Stephen A. Smith. I couldn't write, huh? While you were on Blaze TV, spewing that bullshit to people. Did you tell them that? Did you tell them how you stood outside of First Take begging me to talk to you? Did you tell them that once this same article in Deadspin came out, weeks later you wrote a lengthy apology to me in an email, begging me to forgive you, pointing out how you were betrayed by this particular writer, so you know how I must feel that you betrayed me? Did you tell the folks that, you bitch? Did you tell them? You fat piece of shit.
And so that's what I heard. That's what I heard when I saw a short, and it was that right there, and I'm like, whoa! I've been following Stephen A. Smith for over a decade. Where did this come from? Now, sorry, because of my setup, I can't bleep it out. But yeah, like it's just the depth that he goes through. If you listen to the whole thing, like he's bringing up names, all of the names from back then. So he's bringing up what's my boy name, the football player. I can't think of his name. I can't think of his name right now, but he's bringing up Jamel Hill. He's bringing up Michael Smith. He's bringing up Chris Broussard. He's bringing up all of these people. And one of the things that I know, and this is where he really kind of like dropped it off, was saying that none of these people like Jason Whitlock, which is not surprising. He brought up Chris Broussard. He said that, from what the people who know that Chris Broussard is a devout Christian. I love from what I see, what I can see outside looking in. But I've always liked the fact that he'll get on national television, even sometimes to his detriment, and stand on his faith. And so Stephen A. literally says, if he wasn't doing what he was doing, he would probably be a minister. And even Chris don't like you. I was like, oh, not necessarily that they don't like him, but just saying that he doesn't want to work with him. And so I didn't know what Jason Whitlock was. I mean, I know he used to be ESPN, then he used to be Fox. I didn't know that he was at Blaze, but even that right there that's a story. Because I can't speak for anybody else, but I know what black people know Blaze for. Was it Tommy Lauren and a lot of far right rhetoric. And, just for the most part, when it comes to not necessarily me, I don't bang red or blue, but when it comes to those things, black people for the most part vote Democrat. So when you get talking that far left talk, we look at it, oh, that's racist. And a lot of those viewpoints and talking points are racist. So the fact that he would go over there and align himself with that brand lets you know everything you need to know about Jason Whitlock. So, like, one of the things we going I do want to say one more thing about this interview, and that's the fact that Stephen A. Smith, like, this interview, I thought that cat interview was crazy. This man literally spent 30 minutes talking about one individual, naming names, talking about the people over at ESPN, naming names, the people over at Fox, naming names. So one of the things he was like, I apologize for, I want to get it. So let's jog like crazy. Oh, that's.
Let me take a moment to tell you about Chris Broussard.
Oh, happen to get to what I was
If
talking
Chris
about.
Broussard were not in this industry, do you know where he'd probably be? Probably, because I don't know for sure, but probably be, y'all, in a monastery. He's one of the most religious, God-fearing, decent human beings you will ever encounter. It doesn't get any better than Christopher Broussard. And he can't stand Jason Whitlock. Look around.
Okay.
Don't
We just happened to jump on what I was just talking about. So that's why I stopped there. Let's just try it.
Ladies and gentlemen, you know why he's talking about me? Because I get him clicks.
Oh,
That's what he's been reduced to. See, this is a passion and a hobby for me. I have a day job that's paying me quite well. I own and operated this. This cost me money because I invested my own money with my new studio, with my staff, and with everything that I've done to do this. He's leaning on Blaze for a check because he can't find one anywhere else. I ask any of you connected to this industry from this point forward, because I know my colleagues, they don't want to touch this subject because he's a bully, and they don't want to deal with the fallout of him constantly coming at them. I don't give a shit. He came to the one. I know what he is. I have the emails. I have the articles. I have everything. I once tried to befriend this dude. I don't talk to him because he betrayed me, as he has others. He's turned his back on Dan Le Batard. He's turned his back on all of those other colleagues that I mentioned.
And just for, what we're talking about now, Dan Le Batard is one of the people that tried to come to Stephen A. to get him to kind of help old boy out with the undefeated Dan Le Batard and Isaiah Thomas. So that's in the meat of the interview.
Ask Jamel Hill about him. Ask Dan Le Batard.
You know what? I wanted to get to the part where he called him Kang, and if you see him going up the street, hug yourself and walk, whatever the case is, watch that. But he said, ask Jamel Hill and ask Dan Le Batard, which bring us to here.
There's a few
not here.
We played a clip earlier of Stephen A. Smith and his Whitlock takeout saying, ask Dan Le Batard, go ahead and ask Jamel Hill about Jason Whitlock. So we've asked Dan Le Batard, and he's been reserved. So we're going to try our hand at asking Jamel Hill.
Okay, and we will ask Jamel Hill about, I believe, to be the most important.
First of all, what's going on with Dan right here? But anywho, let's go.
Important story of the day, which is Lucy's intense hatred for Michigan fans. Because, oh wow, Jamel agrees with that one totally. Lucy says
They're
she's
the worst.
Lucy says
I can relate.
they're the worst. Jamel, Michigan fans are the worst. I thought all fan bases, any fan base that's caught up in
Well, I will say that what Stephen A. said is correct. Is that when the undefeated started, um, Jason and I have a history, and I just realized it's been a really long time since I've said his name, and so maybe from this point forward, I just won't say it.
Or you can call him a
But
fat bastard.
I won't go there. I'll leave that to Stephen A. And by the way, just a quick point about the rant is that it is, even though in real life, like off air, I've heard Stephen A. Curse just in conversation. He sounds so awkward cursing on broadcast. Maybe because he's not used to doing it, but I needed him to put a little stank on it. You know what I'm saying? Like it sounded like he hadn't cursed in a long time. It sort of reminded me of when you sort of learn your teacher's first name and you're like, oh my God, you're not Miss Johnson, you're Loretta. What is this? So
I love no holds barred, Stephen A. I
do too.
I love
I
outside the corporate machine, Stephen A. saying whatever the hell he wants, all powerful.
I'm here for the rankings of women. I'm here for him talking about the body parts he likes. I'm here for this liberated Stephen A. But it still feels weird to hear him curse, and I just I needed it to sound a little less awkward. But that being said, to answer Mike's question, is that Stephen A. was correct when the undefeated started. He reached out to a bunch of us to see if we wanted to work, with the undefeated. He and I have a particular. We were at one point. I would have considered us to be friends, and that dissolved for a number of reasons. Some of which I don't necessarily feel like I want to dig up the bones on, but only to a certain degree to make my point. But by that time, we were not even, wouldn't even acknowledge each other probably in the same room on that level. And he reached out to me. He apologized and said that it was a bad look to have two Black people in our position to be beefing. And that he would like me to do some work with the undefeated. Now, I thought that it was such a terrible idea for Skipper and to hire him to do this. I don't know why he did. And I told Skipper that. I mean, I told him that at the time that, like, this was not.
We've learned it's Dan's fault, Jamel. We've learned today
No.
it's Dan's fault.
Wait. I found that out later, and I almost started to be like, Dan, like,
us
dude,
too.
what would make you think this was a good idea?
God damn it, Dan.
This is what happened, Jamel. This is what happened. It wasn't just me; it was me and Simmons, right? It's Whitlock.
I know. I heard that too.
And Bill Simmons.
Yeah, Whitlock asked us to make a call vouching for him as a journalist, and we did. And I made not the joke, but I just said earlier in the show, how's that for privilege? How does the Black guy get power? It's the Black guy who's against all the other Black people, chosen by the two white guys and the Cuban guy.
Huh?
That is my main question to you, Dan. Did you ask any Black people about
I did well, but Jamel, I was vouching for him as a columnist. He was a good sports columnist.
Well, I didn't want to totally derail this conversation, Dan, but I did notice you were dressed rather strangely. But I'm not here to judge. Well, if this is how you felt this morning that you wanted to dress, then here it is.
What did you think? Because this is so interesting, everything that's happening at the top of sports media right now, Jamel, because you've seen the culture wars are coming and to sports media power. And Sage Steele has weighed in on how disappointing it was to see Stephen A. Smith go after.
That's another one. So you hear that name, Sage Steele, like. Just Black people who know, just know. And I tell you another one. And I know, some people like her. Within the last year or so, I've found myself disagreeing with a lot of the things that she does, and find myself as a personality not liking her. Malika Andrews is the same way, but
Jason Whitlock so unprofessionally. So what do I do with that?
Well, if there was one person who would come to his defense, I think that's probably the correct person. If you asked me to take five guesses, all five of them would have probably been her. I think
man, I hey, yeah. So like I said, I was I was around. I was a big fan. Jamel Hill is one of the reasons why I started podcasting. I'm sorry, I'm making a lot of noise. What is that? But yeah, she's one of the reasons why I started podcasting back when I was podcasting. So yeah, interesting, just interesting. But let's move along. Gonna stay in sports though, kinda. Erik Spoelstra. So I don't know what to say about this. I don't know if I should commend this. It's kind of genius to an extent. It also feels like someone is going to be talking to a lawyer sometime very soon. But the Miami Heat chose to make Erik Spoelstra, Spo is what most sports fans call him, decided to make Spo the the richest coach in the NBA, and it just so happened to be after his divorce finalized. And I, me and my wife talk about it and everything. This even started, this started a little conversation in my house. And I don't, we not, we not divorcing. That's not even a thought. But in Bizarro land, she brought that up, and I was like, if somehow we were not able to make it work, you're still the mother of my children. And if I get 120, I'm breaking you off with 60. Cause, we built together. But if I had an ideal and I was trying to bring this ideal into a reality and you did not support me, not only did you not support me, you actively worked against me in trying to make it happen, then I can see a world where you don't get 60. I still break you out for some though, but not 60. But yeah, so I don't know. This is one of those things. I don't know how I feel about this. It's interesting. It would depend on the reasons for their divorce. I guess that was me moving that made that sound. The reason for them divorcing, for me to know how I feel about it. But hey, that ain't none of my business. I try to mind the business that takes care of me, and I feel as if I just keep minding my business and don't mind other people's business when it comes to what they do in their relationship, then I can keep mine intact. So, yeah, that's my thought process towards that. But I just thought that was crazy when I seen that on the internets. Let's see here. Yeah. Shoot. That's it. What I had last is actually I talked about it first because it just felt that way in the internet. Let's go look at something though. Since I'm here. Why not? Or that looks messy. Oh, yeah, that looks messy. We're not getting in that. I'll tell you one thing. Let me go look at something real quick. Had to stop watching the Pelican game because I ain't like how that was going. We would do to lose. We would do to lose one. but I didn't like the way the game was being officiated. But that is what it is. Well, we didn't lose. We didn't lose as bad as we could have. Did y'all see that pass that Joker made though? Let me get. Let's see here. Let's move over to this. Looking right there at it, so yeah, it is. First thing on the NBA. Why am I looking at it up there? Let's look at it here. Turn.
The coaches, you should.
That's not super relevant to an NBA game, but
How about Jokic with an
Look at this
incredible
one, man. I watched that thing in real time. I'm
relevant
like,
to an
what
NBA
in
game,
the
but
How about
world?
Jokic with an incredible pass to challenge flag for the coaches. You should.
that's not super relevant to an NBA game, but
How about Jokic with an incredible pass to Aaron Gordon?
Crazy.
51 Denver in front, 8 threes for the Nuggets. Nikola Jokic, 15 points, 7 assists.
So 113, 125. I ain't mad at it. I'm not mad at it. I probably should have watched the end of the game to see exactly how we got that 113 to 135, because it probably still was a blowout, but hey, it is what it is. While we're here, let's take a look around the NBA. Might as well. We look down here. Yeah. This right here was crazy because Embiid didn't play. Y'all let Tobias Harris drop 40 on y'all. That's crazy. That's crazy too, because they don't have Halliburton. That's not crazy. Now this is crazy, the fact that they were within 2. This is crazy also, because this doesn't happen anymore, even though both of these teams or they do that, especially the Heat. But 99 to 96 in today's NBA, that's crazy. Just look at it. Like the Kings scored 93. That's most teams get over 100. And to the point where this right here is more normal these days. 140 to 131. Like 48 in the quarter. The Warriors needed that though. They needed that for their confidence. Clippers look good right now. Oh. Spurs doing it like that? Jazz hung 145 up. See, it's just normally you have teams where they break 100. So that's crazy to see that. But anywho, I think I did not make it on here yesterday because I was exhausted, and to further prevent exhaustion, I'm just gonna get on up out of here. I will get back on tomorrow. I was supposed to have a guest on today. Don't quite know what happened, so maybe sometime this weekend for sure. We're gonna get a guest. Maybe that guest, maybe not that guest, but we're gonna have a guest on this Joker at some point in time this weekend. So let me check one more thing just to make sure I'm not ignoring anybody over here on YouTube, because it doesn't always show me. Nah, we good. Okay, well, it's been cool. Enjoy your Martin Luther King weekend. Don't do anything that Martin wouldn't do. And y'all have a good time until next time. and it would have been good for me to have this up. So